The first duty of government is to protect our rights.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government in what we were tasked to do.
If you really want to doge, this is how you doge. You don't vote for bad legislation that expands government. Thank you.
Now we're talking about taxpayer money, and we're talking about accountability. It is their money. This isn't a government program we're actually spending on. We're actually giving it back to the people of Idaho.
There's other options for making our ballots more secure, such as using watermarks or putting holograms on the ballots.
And I think that that's what we need to look at more, is trying to get back to what we used to be, where our churches and our families took care of each other instead of relying on the state.
I asked the question rhetorically, if we gave them another $1 billion, they wouldn't be happy. Well, we've given them $2 more billion, and it's not enough.
We need to start making Idaho first. We need to start making America first.
The other states like Texas and Florida have enacted similar laws to address illegal immigration, both locally and in their communities. And Idaho has the right to protect itself when the federal government has failed to do that.
COVID presented us with quite the enigma. We didn't really know what it was or what to do, but that is no excuse to violate the rights of the citizens of the state of Idaho.
Say vote no on this and let the teachers teach and quit bringing in coaches to teach the teachers to teach, and let's get education going again in Idaho.
I don't know what's coming after this current administration for the feds, and we need this law because our federal laws on immigration have failed.
Mr. President, I think it's incumbent upon us to allow parents to use their hard-earned dollars to provide what's best for their children.
If I was looking at a business and I was looking at these figures, there would be heads rolling because this is unsustainable.
My concern is that the resilience of Idahoans who believe in self-reliance and self-responsibility will be eroded.
We need to be protecting our First Amendment rights, not inventing ways to slowly chip away at them.
The First Amendment and our freedom of religion, freedom of speech are our first liberties. They are so important. We don't have the rest without them.
Yeah, watch it.
Well. Good morning, folks. It is January 28th, 2026. Welcome to Idaho Signal. We're on the air, and folks, we're in week 3 of the session, and there is a lot to catch up with. We've been watching the committees. We've been watching what's happening on the floor and in both the Senate and the House. Nothing too exciting yet. But there are a couple of things that happen on the edges that kind of like get your attention every now and again. And we want to cover it all here. We only really have an hour a day, and sometimes we don't get to a lot of things. But one of the things that I know that people out there are talking about was this Hispanic Affairs Commission, which during the summer got a lot of heat because it's like a $500,000 program that's specifically geared towards outreach to the Hispanic community through this government commission. And it's one of those things that's like, you know, what are we doing here? Why don't we just cut it and let the nonprofits who spend and raise a lot more money just take care of those issues that need to be addressed in those communities? Well, that bill to just end that commission got voted down in a tie vote. A tie vote means the bill doesn't get through. So 7-7, it died in committee. We hear it's going to come back again with maybe an extension on when that commission would wind down. But it's one of those things that just gets. I think we probably did talk about it once. It's one of those things where it gets so frustrating because we saw with the yellow dot program that Representative Scott brought up to get rid of. It only uses a little bit amount of money, but it's these things that just gum up the works, and nobody feels like they want to get rid of anything. So we also talked yesterday about this extra $16 million that the health and welfare want for the child care centers. Meanwhile, they're still sitting on the $14 million that they haven't even doled out yet, and they want to pay for extra people to look into the fraud. So, folks, we've been pounding away on this. Stay vigilant. Stay vigilant. Contact these folks. Tell them to just move, get with the program, cut spending, cut inefficiency, cut these programs, and move along. There's also a bill that came across my radar yesterday regarding camping out on the Capitol and those types of protests. But there was an element in there that felt just really kind of over the top. And so we're going to address that. Josh Tanner is still on tour. He was in, what committee was he in yesterday? I pulled the clip. He's still going to committees, talking to them about JFAC and how the budgeting process works. And we've got a bunch of clips from committees today to kind of go through. But first, Senator Brian Lenny was in the Senate State Affairs Committee this morning. And what he was doing was addressing something that has to do with these gubernatorial appointments to commissions and boards and the various extracurricular sort of things that are out there lying in these agencies that deal with the public in a certain way. And so he had an idea for what happens when the Senate rejects a nominee. Let's watch this presentation.
This last one is RS 32970. This puts a 12-month moratorium on gubernatorial appointees when they are rejected. This just says that if the Senate explicitly rejects an appointee, that same person can't be appointed to any position requiring Senate consent for 12 months following. And the reason for this, obviously, we're in the Senate. We've rejected people, a few since I've been here. I know the rejections are rare in the Senate, but I think our vote has to mean something. I don't think this is a problem we have. I haven't seen that since I've been here, but the Constitution gives the Senate confirmation power for a reason. Our votes aren't just suggestions, and when we reject someone, we're saying that person should not serve in positions of public trust. So all this does is create accountability down the road long enough that the rejection actually sticks and short enough that it's not a permanent ban. So with that, I would ask that you would print RS 32970, and I'll stand for any kind of questions.
And they did vote yes to print that bill. It is now Senate Bill 1235, Senate Bill 1235. Brian Allman joins us right now. Brian, we haven't really covered these appointments before. They kind of sometimes seem very benign in nature. But just give us a brief background. I don't know if I butchered it at the top here, but what is this process for gubernatorial appointments, and essentially what does Senator Lenny want to do with this bill?
It's good to be back, Matt. So just like at the federal level, where certain presidential appointments have to be confirmed by the U.S. Senate, a lot of gubernatorial appointments have to be affirmed by the Idaho Senate. And this, I'm looking at Title 59, Chapter 9, about filling these vacancies in offices, whether it comes from resignation or because someone's term expired. The governor has a tremendous ability to appoint people to all sorts of positions, directors of state agencies, members of state boards and commissions. There's tons of them if you just look through the list. And this has been around since our original constitution, our original law, when Idaho became a state. So it's pretty common practice. So say you've got the director of the Department of Health and Welfare. Alex Adams went to the federal government, so that created a vacancy. Governor Little appointed Juliette Sharon, who we saw on the show yesterday, presenting to JFAC. However, since the Senate wasn't in session, the legislature wasn't in session, that appointment became essentially temporary. So she took that position and started doing those duties, but she still has to be confirmed by the Senate this session. So her nomination gets sent to the Senate and then given to the appropriate committee, which in this case would probably be the Senate Health and Welfare Committee. And then they'll vote to decide whether to recommend that she be appointed or recommend that she don't. And that recommendation goes to the full Senate floor. They will vote. If they approve her, then she's in the job, serving at the pleasure of the governor. If she is rejected, then the governor has to come up with someone new.
Right. And so, for instance, this morning in Senate State Affairs, there was a reappointment of a consideration for the gubernatorial reappointment of Estela Zamora of Caldwell to the Idaho Caldwell, Idaho, to the Commission on Human Rights to serve a term from this coming July. Oh no, I'm sorry, from July 2025 to July 2028. And so sometimes these appointments can be, a few years long and so forth. But what was she was there this morning with a little bit of a presentation. Let's watch. As an example, let's watch a little bit of that presentation.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. As you said, I'm from Caldwell. I have been in Idaho for over 60 years, so I consider Idaho my home. I'm a former migrant farm worker. My father was a labor contractor, so he brought people to the state of Idaho to work in agricultural labor for a number of years. And so, as I said, my family migrated here. We also worked out in the fields and contributed that way. I'm also blessed to have had the opportunity to work in this community, to do different things for the benefit of many. I retired from my work at the Canyon County Courthouse in 2013. I had the opportunity to be the interpreter coordinator for the courts and helping people through the process, the judicial process, for almost 30 years. I have been very active in serving my community for most of my adult life. I've had the opportunity to serve Idaho on the Human Rights Commission as president and now currently serving as vice president. I am passionate about everyone being treated respectfully, with dignity, and be given opportunity to work in the state, to live in the state. We have premier staff at the Human Rights Commission, so I would love to continue working with them. I have had the opportunity to work with some very dedicated human rights passionate commissioners. Sadly, we have lost Joe McNeil this past week, who was serving on the commission as well. And so he was very highly regarded and had a passion for this work. So his contributions will be missed. So
very nice. Okay, Brian. So this is Estela Zamora. She's already been on the commission. She's been there for a while. And Handyman 88 says she is part of the establishment Rhino team. Okay. Sometimes I don't get to see the comments. I like seeing the comments. Okay. So, but Brian, Estela's been there a while now, so we get it. And this is a simple, it should be a simple reappointment, shouldn't it? What else do we know about her?
Well, first, let's talk about what the Idaho Commission on Human Rights really is. It was established in 1969 with the intention of essentially enforcing federal anti-discrimination laws. So you had the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Age Discrimination in Employment Act, the Americans with Disabilities Act, all these acts saying that you can't discriminate for this or that. And so Idaho Code actually has protected classes, people that you cannot discriminate against: race, color, religion, national origin, sex, disability, or age. If you're 40 or over, you can't be discriminated against, which, as somebody who's 40 or over, that's nice to know. As much as Democrats like Senator Melissa Wintrow would like to have it, we do not have gender identity or sexual orientation on that list. They've been trying for years to get that added so that people could sue if they're discriminated against for being a man dressing in women's clothing or something, but it's not there. But what the Commission on Human Rights does is it takes complaints. Say somebody says that they were discriminated against by their employer because of one of these protected reasons. They investigate, and if they decide that there's probable cause there, they have a lot of influence. They can, force an employer to come to mediation to try and, do this informally. They have the ability to file civil lawsuits against employers for alleged discrimination, and they can bring the weight of the government into those suits. So this particular appointment, it's not just just a dog and pony show. It's has real ability to affect the relationships between employers and employees, and a lot of other stuff. So it is an important position, and well, it is interesting to see what we've learned about Ms. Zamora and her views on certain things.
Well, yeah, because I mean, if the way you lay it out, I mean, that is pretty powerful to be in that position, in that commission, to take on, complaints and do investigations and essentially bring people before what sounds like some sort of star chamber, and in the hands of the wrong people, this could be a bad thing here. So, I mean, so what did we find out about Miss Zamora here?
So, just a quick perusal of her Facebook page shows that, well, she is not in favor of ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, enforcing immigration law. For example, this post that we just showed up on the screen here, it's obviously in Spanish, but you can get the gist of it. Fuera means out. Get ICE out of here. Get ICE out of our country. And that first post in Spanish was shared originally by Poder of Idaho, which is, in my view, an explicitly pro-illegal immigration group that tries to use advocacy and street protests to really push the issue of amnesty, of saying no person is illegal, that sort of thing. So that's interesting to see where she's coming from on that. And there's a bunch more posts here talking about how being a member of the Tren de Arugula or the MS-13 gangs is no different than being a Proud Boy. And those people should be sent out there. There we go, claiming that she's been targeted because of her skin color. I don't know anyone who's targeting people in Idaho because of their skin color or their ethnicity. I do know that the Trump administration is working to enforce the law as it is written, saying that if you come to this country illegally, you have to go back. And that if you then, maybe somebody who is a citizen interferes with that, parking their car in the way or blowing whistles or trying to actually accost law enforcement, then they are going to receive the due process for that. So it's...
So she's basically an activist. She's basically a leftist activist, working and promoting things that are going against ICE and against the federal government's ability to deport criminal aliens. And so she's. I mean, that's the mandate. The mandate is ICE is out there to deport, arrest and deport criminal illegal aliens. And so she's an activist. She's an activist, and if she was in Minnesota, she it looks like she's promoting solidarity with Minnesota and the things that are going on there. And here is somebody that is going to be in what you described earlier, a position of power at the Human Rights Commission, where they can do investigations on discrimination and all sorts of different claims. Is this who we want in our in these positions?
Well, I think you and I would agree that this is not the type of perspective we want to bring to this commission. The ICHRA, IHC, Idaho Human Rights Commission, has been, their real task is, these discrimination complaints. And even in this hearing, she mentions that one of their biggest issues is disability discrimination complaints. However, this shows, really where her perspective is, what her worldview is, the lens that she sees the entire world. The commission has been, partnering with other groups, private groups that really promote a very, very, very left-wing, progressive, even socialist view, of identity politics and, social justice and such. Governor Little has been, publicly very supportive of ICE, putting out, various, when the Wilder raid happened a few months ago, when ICE came in and, detained people who were allegedly here illegally out at the, horse racetrack in Wilder, where there was also illegal betting going on. He put out a statement in support instead of,
Well, where was he? I'm sorry, Brian. I just I'm getting so incensed here. Why is the governor appointing this person?
Exactly. That was my question. If, he's been publicly in favor of ICE, supporting President Trump and his efforts to enforce the law, and yet he reappoints this woman whose, views run very counter to what those aims are. Does he know about it? Does he not care? You can make the case that, well, somebody's personal political opinion shouldn't affect how, your position like this. But at the same time, this is a very politically sensitive position that intersects with a lot of these issues. And so it goes to show exactly the perspective she's going to be bringing to this 9-member board. If if you found out that an appointee to this was, some sort of white supremacist, posting, Nazi nonsense, then, that person would rightly be pilloried. And,
of course. And Brian, the point is that this state is what we went like 79, 80, 90% for Trump, right? Like the mandate is clear. This is a Republican-red conservative state that is, the entire country is 65% in favor of what ICE is still doing. And in this state, it's even higher. And so when people elect people like Governor Little, a Republican, and then stack committees with Republicans, super majorities of Republicans, how does someone like this get through? Even if you were to say, well, you wouldn't want someone's values on why should we have someone with the other values on the right-leaning side on these commissions? Why? Because this is we govern ourselves. This is who we want to put in power. And so you put someone like this in power. Where was she? What was Truth Family Bible Church allowed to go to the Human Rights Commission and say that their rights were violated? Would she have taken up that cause if Christians find themselves being violated? These homeschooling Christians that just want to have take advantage of a public service, like the curriculum expenses being taken care of at their local school, and then they being denied. Is she going to help them? No, she's not. She's going to help ICE. She's going to help illegal criminal aliens and do all she can to make sure that like she said, her entire history is working in the fields and working in the farms. Well, I'm not going to sit here and say, how did she get here? 60 years ago, right? Did she come the right way? I mean, it's worth asking. She seems to be so passionate about is this her posting about the gentleman that got shot and killed? What is that's the guy that got shot and killed in Minnesota?
Right. That's pretty
an American hero.
Any death is a tragedy, of course, but he put himself in a position to try and impede ICE's operations. And apparently, I just saw yesterday, this was not the first time. A couple of weeks ago, he apparently broke a bone trying to fight ICE. And so he was dedicating his life to fighting law enforcement, to trying to stop law enforcement.
And so let's reward Estella with a position in the Human Rights Commission here in Idaho. Real smart, guys. Real smart.
Well, it'll be up to the Senate. We'll see how the committee votes on Friday. They'll come back and vote on whether to recommend to the full Senate that she be reappointed or not. And then the Senate gets to decide. They can reject her. They can say, no, no, Governor Little, we respectfully disagree. This is not a good person for this position. And we, as the Idaho Senate, reject it. That is entirely within their purview.
All right. So then here's what we do, folks, when you're watching. This is what we do. Put up the number. This is the phone number for the State Affairs Committee, 208-332-1326. Get out your email and sstaf@senate.idaho.gov. That's what you need to do. You need to call up the State Affairs and say you cannot reappoint this pro illegal immigration, anti-ICE activist to this Human Rights Commission. It's atrocious. She should not be there. In fact, I don't know when her term is up, or if she's still. I mean, her appointment here. They were considering was from July 1st, 2025. So is she just sort of like a sitting commissioner at this point? This is atrocious, folks. If you agree with me, I don't know if you agree with me or Brian here, but the Senate State Affairs Committee needs to hear you. 208-332-1326 to not recommend reappointing Miss Estella. If she would like to go work on something, she's more than welcome to head out to Minnesota. I'm sure there's plenty of people who could pull up some funds to send her to Minnesota so she can fight ICE over there, because it's not going to happen here.
Yeah, this would be a great opportunity for our legislature to actually draw a line in the sand. It sometimes seems like we just have to accept that certain positions, like the Human Rights Commission, it's like reserved for leftists. That's their thing and they can have it. But like I said earlier, it does have real enforcement ability in these disputes, in these adjudications between employers and employees, and so it's not just for show. It matters, and we should draw a line and say somebody with these views should not be in this government position.
And either A, either Brad Little doesn't know anything about this. So Brad, Mr. Governor, here's Estella. Here's your appointment. Your name is on this appointment. Or B, your staff doesn't know who this is. So who's doing the vetting? Who's doing the vetting in the governor's office? Because now the Senate State Affairs, here's Guthrie. Let's show the clip of Guthrie. He's the head of the committee here. Here's how he ended the committee.
I don't see any other questions. I will say that your background certainly lends itself to offering a unique perspective on this commission. So appreciate your willingness to serve. We will vote on your appointment on Friday. But thank you for being in committee this morning.
It doesn't seem like Jim Guthrie is either A, he liked her background, the background that we just saw, or he has no idea who these people are.
Remember, Senator Guthrie, the chairman of Senate State Affairs, he has been trying for years to get a bill through to allow illegal aliens in Idaho to obtain driver's licenses. That's been one of his things. He's not been able to get it through, but he's brought it forward several times. He even had a photo op in the rotunda with a representative from that aforementioned PODER of Idaho, this pro-illegal alien group, who was working with him on this bill. So I don't think he's really the best spokesman for rule of law and ICE and supporting President Trump's agenda and what we believe makes America great. What else can I say?
What else do you say is we need to get rid of this guy. He needs to be voted out, folks. He needs to be voted out. I don't know. I mean, is it worth showing some of the questioning? I mean, was there anything else gained by there were a few questions sent his way. Senator Ben Adams had a question for Estella. Let's watch that.
In the large scheme of things, we see a lot of, it seems like we can't get away from questions on immigration and human rights. In Idaho, when it comes to human rights being violated or anything like that, have you seen any of that on the committee, and do you have any concerns about that?
Ms. Samara.
Senator Adams, Senator Guthrie, and the committee, I don't recall an actual immigration case coming before the commission. I remember when, possibly in the 90s, late 90s, and it was in eastern Idaho, and it had to do with immigrants and language. I don't remember the details of that case, but yes.
It's, as I'm reading about this morning and the work of the Human Rights Commission and how it crossways with this, she's casting the whole immigration enforcement debate as being about race and ethnicity. And I would disagree with that. If it happens to be that a lot of people who are here illegally and are getting deported are from, certain countries with certain ethnicities that speak certain languages, so be it. But that's not the primary purpose of this. They would say that Trump and ICE are just being racist because they're evil and deporting, Hispanic people like her. Whereas the law is the law. If we had a mass migration of illegal migrants from Sweden or Japan or whatever, I would feel the same way, and I'm sure you would too. But they're trying to cast this as a human rights issue, that immigration enforcement is infringing upon the human rights of migrants who just want to be here for a better life. And that's where I think her appointment and her position on this board already is probably dangerous. I would have concerns about it because she sees the world through that lens. And so she would see, if something did come up, then would she want the commission to get involved, say with the Wilder raid a few months ago, where ICE came and picked up about 100 people that they said were here illegally? Would she try and use the power of that commission, whether for the bully pulpit of it, just the prestige of being able to say I'm speaking on behalf of this commission, or actual litigation with the power of the government behind it to try and stop that?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, it makes Lenny's bill this morning even more apropos. Here's the changes that would be made here. It says when a gubernatorial appointment pursuant to this section is expressly rejected by the Senate, The rejected appointee shall be ineligible for appointment to by the governor to any position requiring the advice and consent of the Senate for 1 year following the Senate's express rejection. So, folks, if you do your work out there and call that number and email the committee, we need to get this person rejected, and then they cannot, and then get that bill passed, and then she won't be back for at least a year. And if she does come back, we'll reject her again. It's atrocious. And folks, and now we understand. You want to know why? How could something like when you talk about other things, how could things like this happen in Idaho? This is how. Because we're not paying attention to appointments like this, and we're not electing people who are doing their due diligence to make sure that they are representing you. They're not representing you. I'm sorry, Governor Little is not properly representing you when his name is on this appointment, and Senator Guthrie is not properly representing you when he's not having people research who's going to be in front of his committee and raise actual questions about what was on there. I mean, we have Friday coming up. We got Friday coming up where they're going to discuss this, and I'm certain after your post today, after things that are going to be exploding online about this, that people will have questions, and if you guys call, they're going to be raising these questions on Friday. So make sure you do that. Here's another question from Handyman. The last comment is a question: how is the role compensated? I'm under the impression there is a retirement in medical, but I could be incorrect. Yeah, some of these commissions are pro bono, right? You don't get any payments, but there is sometimes maybe a stipend. Sometimes there is. Generally speaking, most of these are volunteer positions. About benefits, I'm not sure. So I guess we'll look into that too as well. Brian, thank you so much for joining us. We got to take a break and then come back with our guests. We do have 2 other guests coming and joining us here shortly. But we'll have you back on tomorrow to cover everything else. Where can people follow you online?
At Brian Ullman on X, gemstatechronicle.com. I'm working on more information about this appointment. And then, there's other stuff going on, stuff with occupational licensing that I found really interesting yesterday that I'll try and write about. But I want to get this out soon because they're going to have this vote on Friday.
All right. Sounds great. Let's do this. We'll take a short break and we will be right back.
That's exactly what happened. You want to pull the tape? You can pull the tape because we now got video.
Idaho is the dirt under your fingernails after an honest day's work. Idaho is the hug around your neck when your daughter spells her first word. Idaho is the written word of the law, steadfast and impartial, guarding liberty for all. Idaho is the family rifle passed down, a legacy of protection and the right to stand firm. Idaho is the echo of your own voice, unshaken and free, standing tall among the world's silenced. Idaho is the home that's built to weather storms, not empty wallets. Idaho is the quiet trust between a patient and healer, unbroken and sacred. Idaho is the hymn carried by the Spirit, gathering neighbors together in faith and purpose. Idaho is the laughter around a campfire, a family's bond growing stronger with every word. Idaho is the pioneer's will, firm and clear. We govern ourselves, free and unbound. Idaho is what America was. Let's keep it that way. Ask your legislator to sign the Citizens Alliance of Idaho pledge to preserve our shared values. We ride together.
From the rolling wheat fields of the Palouse to the white water runs on the Payetz-a-Roo. Golden potatoes, farmers stand strong, cattle and dairy, they're feeding us all. From Boise nights with the bright city glow to Coeur d'Alene's calm waters below, spuddy-buddy waves with a smile so wide, sharing our story with American pride. So raise that flag, let freedom We've walked with Lewis and Clark on the trail, raised out families with stories to tell. Generations working hard hand in hand, building on a dream, saying yes we can. So raise that flag, let freedom fly, echo liberty from plains to mountains high. America's heart beats red, white, and blue, 250 years of me and you, yeah, lift it up loud. Idaho proud, American true. Church bells ring through the valley air, rodeo lights, what a life we share. Esto perpetua, forever we'll sing, God, land, and family. Let freedom ring.
All right, folks, that's what's happening in your committees. We like putting up the calendars there for you to keep up. That'll be later today in the Senate Judiciary and Rules Committee. So, welcome back, everybody. Yeah, please pay attention to these gubernatorial appointments. I mean, this is wild, and it only happens in the Senate. So, all we have to do is stop it one time, and that's it. Joining me now, I believe, is Representative Chris Bruce out of District 23. Representative Bruce, thank you so much for taking the time out today. You are a busy man these days because you have just been appointed to JFAC to be on the Joint Finance and Appropriations Committee, which I think is a fantastic appointment. We've already been playing clips of you asking some great questions. Yesterday, in particular, you were questioning this child care center program that the Health and Welfare was back asking for something like $16 million more for the upcoming budget, while they're sitting on $14 million that they haven't even used yet. You want to give us your perspective on this right now?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate you letting me jump on. It has been kind of wild around here. I get a lot of congratulations and condolences. I haven't decided which one is better, right. For the appointment to that committee. But it's been good. Yeah, I think, when we talk about these agencies that come in, that in particular, they wanted additional $16 million, but they haven't allocated the other 14, I think it's 14.8 that they had, because they were figuring out how to allocate it. Some people had questions about whether there was misuse of it or possibly misuse. And honestly, it may not even be like a fraud issue. It may be that the system's set up that these folks can just use multiple avenues of welfare, right, or these assistants. And so while they're looking at that, I just don't think it's the right move to allocate another $16 million towards it when they haven't figured out how they're going to allocate the 14. Right. That's just me personally, but I think that's, on the committee, I've tried to ask questions as far as, what do we get for this money, right? And I think I asked the same thing. What do we get for $16 million? More of an ROI. We're putting out the taxpayers' money. What are we actually getting in return? Because I found a lot of these have different layers on top of it, right? It may not be one form of funding. There may be 2 or 3 different streams of funding that are going toward the same issue. And that's kind of concerning from my point of view, just to try to weed through it.
Yes, and you brought up a good point there that sometimes these things aren't, because the whole point is that apparently Idaho has a child care crisis, right? Where there's not enough people and businesses and places for people to have their children looked after while they go off to work. And so apparently that's a crisis here, and we, the government, are trying to alleviate that by tapping into these federal funds in order to help start, get startups moving again and get these centers online. But you're saying that there's a possibility that some of this stuff is just being used as kind of welfare, because as we see in the Minnesota case, these Somalis will just open up these daycares and take care of each other's kids and reap in hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions.
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing is some of that might not even be against the law, right? But it's just been set up that they could take advantage of it. Now, ethically, is it correct? No. but is it against the law? That's another thing. And I hope to find out soon what they're doing with that. And that's kind of what I try to look at is are we using this money appropriately? Because I think I say a lot in committee is we talk about all the folks we can help, and I'm all for helping people. But we need to remember the people who are not on these programs, who are not calling us all the time, that are really not taking handouts, that are footing the bill for it. But we forget about those folks who are back home paying the bill, maybe working 2-3 jobs, paying their taxes, but not on any type of assistance. So I try to remember those people and at least remind the committee as well, hey, let's think about these folks. If we weren't spend our own money on it, why would we spend their money on it?
Yeah, amen, brother. That's great. One of the things that one of your colleagues, your Senate colleagues up there asked, Senator Zeiderveld, was they asked Juliet Sharon, I believe, the Department of Health and Welfare, that she's requesting at least 1, maybe 5 people to look into sort of this 360 review to find out if there is any fraud going on, if there is any mishandling of these funds. And that kind of made me wonder, who's doing that now? I mean, shouldn't that just be part of the job? I mean, why do we have to now hire extra people, add an extra layer of bureaucracy just so that we can find out if we're wasting, spending the money correctly? What was that about?
Yeah, that was wild. I think I was thinking the same thing. Like, we have to bring on more people to check things out. Why don't we just set the parameters up front before we allocate any money out? Check all these individuals, make sure that they fall within the guidelines and the rules and are using the money like the legislature set it aside to be used. That would stop a lot of having to go back and look. So I'm more of, I take the stance of let's look at it prior to sending money, not send money and then try to track it all down.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we saw with education, they allocated a couple of years ago $330 million for teacher pay. And when asked, Representative Price asked somebody about where'd that money go? Did it go to the teachers? And they said, oh, well, once that money goes into the fund, it goes everywhere. So you can't really track this stuff.
And that's what. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But that's what I found too is not only what funds were moved over, but what were they actually spent on? Because we have our legislative book, and it gives you kind of an excerpt. But what I've actually been doing is going to the Transparent Idaho, the comptroller's website, looking at these agencies and seeing, hey, where actually did they spend this money? Did they spend it on Taco Bell, or did they spend it on something that they were supposed to use it for? And it's way more of an in-depth process than I ever thought. But, it's good that I have the chance to see how it all works out. I mean, I said the other day, you start pulling at a string and next thing you know, you're like, oh my gosh, it all falls out. So, it's been a good experience for me. And obviously having some of the other great representatives and senators on there, I think they're asking some good questions. And I didn't follow it a lot last year. I read the budgets as they came on the floor, but this year I'm seriously involved with not only what we're allocating, but what they spend it for. And then what are we getting back for it? What's the taxpayer benefiting from continuing these programs? I mean, I would actually like to see a lot of these programs have sunsets and then have the directors come back in front of us and say, this is why we need to keep this program, or this program didn't work. I think, they have metrics that they've set and outcomes that they want to meet. But for me, sunset all these programs, have them come back and explain what we really got, how many kids we helped, how many families, what we did with them. And then we can decide as a body if we want to continue to fund that.
Yeah, and that's something that can be done in committee, right? I mean, that's where those bills are formed. And I think one of the things that we've also been tracking is co-chair Representative Josh Tanner has been doing a bit of a tour to all the House committees, explaining the JFAC process, encouraging them to look back at old legislation and things that need to be sunsetted but weren't, and that sort of thing. Your perspective on that, now that you're in the JFAC, how helpful would that have been for you last session when you were only in committees?
Yeah, well, it's been really good. I've had legislators from all different committees reaching out to me, having questions, and not only are we tracking it down in JFAC, but some different members of the Health and Welfare Committee, they're looking in the book and they're calling the analysts and they're saying, hey, these funds were, this department moved or this division moved to this. I see we moved 23 million, but 3 million here and ended up here. Where'd the other 20 million go? And so we're tracking that money down. It would have been great to have it last year, but I think this year it's more of a whole legislature approach, which has been really good under Senator Grow and Representative Tanner.
That's great. That is great to hear. And I did hear a few people push back, the ones, because, look, there's two people that arrive in government in your position. Those who are there who think that they work for the governor and the agencies, and those who know, like you, that you work for the people. And so when you come up against, legislators who are doing exactly what you just did, like, wait, we allocated 23 million, you spent 20, where's the other 3? Those they don't like those questions, do they?
No, and having to answer them on the spot too, and then you'll hear. I've heard a lot of, oh, well, that's getting down. We don't want to ask where money goes. They said, well, that's getting down in the weeds. Yeah, exactly. That's where I want to be, right? Because I think that's where a lot of people, they get to this one level and they say, oh, well, that's a little more than most folks look at, or that's down in the weeds, and that's meant to deter you, but it's not. That's where we actually should be looking to see where those dollars are actually going. So it's been a good experience, and I know it's election year, right? And so some people are like, we don't necessarily want to cut that, or should we do that? I look at it as, hey, I've had 2 years here. If I can right-size the government and I don't get elected next year, great. I did a good thing when I left here. We've cut some things back, and I'll feel good about it.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, we've also been paying attention to some of the other bills that you've been bringing in committee. You had this blood donor bill that you were working on, something also dealing with cancer treatments and so forth. You want to kind of walk us through a little bit of your top line priorities?
Yeah, so the blood donation bill I worked on last year, it had, when you donate blood, you could have it labeled from somebody who would disclose if they'd had the MNRA vaccination. We got it through the House, got it over to the Senate, but some questions came up, and so, it died there, which seemed to be normal last year. A lot of stuff ended up failing in the Senate. But this year, I just wanted to bring one back that was more autologous is what it's called. So I can donate my own blood for procedure, or if you and I are the same blood type, you could donate it to me. And that way I don't have to deal with the whole blood mafia, sometimes I like to call it, but that whole area of the market. Yeah. And I figure, if you have someone you trust or you want to donate your own blood, why should we stop those folks who are concerned about different things? I don't think it should be an issue, but I'm sure we'll have to fight some folks on it. The other bill that I had was for medical procedures. So if you go in to have a medical procedure, they have to provide you the cash price and the insurance price. You can decide, and then that money goes towards your deductible. And what I'm thinking is that people can negotiate their own kind of what they are comfortable with paying at these procedures, but that it would still apply towards your deductible. And
right.
I've had some insurance companies reach out. They do have some concerns about it, but the goal is just to, first off, the folks who are doing these procedures, they can get paid right then, and not have to wait for the insurance companies or
Sure.
To come back and pay them. So it helps the business owner, but then it also helps the patient being able to negotiate their own price. The third one that went through health and welfare is oral parity. I don't know if you remember, I'm a leukemia survivor. So I went through several years of chemotherapy, spent 33 days in ICU, and I had to deal with this specifically where I went to $20,000, your deductible's $10,000. The intravenous, you go to the pharmacy, they want your $10,000 now. So this would just create parity so that both intravenous and oral are covered the same. Because a lot of folks that are out in rural areas, they're having to travel into towns to take intravenous treatment when they could just medicate themselves at home. Cuts back on just a headache. And when you have cancer anyway, it's already a lot to deal with. You're dealing with it financially with your family and everything else. But that travel in and out of town all the time just adds a layer of stress. So
yeah. Wow. Well, good for you, Representative. Thank you so much for your work on those issues and your work in JFAC. Where can people follow you and keep track of your good work and support you?
So I'm on obviously X, and then Chris Bruce for Idaho on Facebook. I forward all my calls from my office to me all year long, which so many people believe. It's funny. I had a guy call me, and he called. He said, well, I want to know where the representative stands on this. And I said, he supports it. And he said, well, I want to know where he stands on this. And I said, he supports that. He said, how the hell do you know? I said, sir, you're talking to the representative, and so he couldn't believe I was answering my own phone. He thought we had staff, but I figured that's the easiest thing you could do is answer the phone for your constituents, good, bad, or ugly. So
That's right.
Feel free to call me, email me. You can find me on X and also on Facebook. So thank you for the time to put my information out there, and I look forward to chatting again.
Yeah, thank you, Representative. Take care. We'll see you soon.
Yes, sir.
All right, great. All right, very good. Excellent. Yeah, well, folks, a quick reminder on all this, like, you know, we're paying attention, laser focused, always keep your eye on the ball and don't get distracted. And so when it comes to somebody like what we talked about at the top of the hour here, you got to stay on the ball. Put that number up again if you can. The Senate State Affairs Committee. This is to voice your opinion on whether or not you think Ola Stella here should be reappointed to the Human Rights Commission. 208-332-1326. Light up the phones, folks. Light up the phones. All right, we've got someone really cool here. I met this gentleman a few years ago. I thought we'd be talking to him a lot more in 2024 and 2025. But he just fell short of some votes during the 24 election, but he's running again in Legislative District 28. James Lamborn is with us. James, it's good to see you, my friend. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So you ran in 2024 for the state legislature. You came up short, but you're going to go at it again. And I just wanted the folks out there in District 28, what is American Falls, Power County, Chubbuck, right? That's sort of the area out there to kind of get to know you a little bit. So please, sir, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for legislature.
Sure. So my wife Misty and I moved here to the Gem State about 4 years ago from Western Washington. I was a Navy brat, and so I grew up kind of all over the place. And by the time 2020 came around, we were witnessing literally the downfall of Western civilization with the COVID and with the chopped and chaz zone and with the Black Lives Matter and the Antifa. And the election and everything, we decided, whoa, it's time to go. So we were new empty nesters, and we had always heard about how free and kind of a red state and a liberty-centered, rugged individual state Idaho was just to the east of us. And so we didn't know anybody here. We had no roots. And we spent 3 months. We checked out about 50 cities in Idaho. And when we landed in American Falls and learned that there was one street light in the entire county, I realized, holy smokes, this place doesn't remind us of Western Washington in any way, shape, or form. This is where we're going to live. And so we replanted our family tree here, Matt. And then 2020 really shook us up the way I think it did for millions of people who had been paying close attention. I turned 18 a few months before 9/11 and was a Republican a few months after 9/11, registered, and really started paying attention to the world and politics. I worked for a decade. I worked as a Teamsters Union member for Aramark Uniform Services. It was a B2B business, and I was responsible for over 100 accounts, most of which were on the University of Washington campus. So I was there 4 days a week. There's 60,000 faculty and students on the UW. They have their own police and everything. And I was there 4 days a week for a decade, basically arguing and defending constitutionalist, conservative, Christian, capitalist viewpoints with faculty and students who were self-avowed socialists and Marxists. And I had to do business with these folks. So I walked that tightrope. But by the time 2020 came, Matt, I realized, these people are done talking. I know what this is. I know who these people are. And they're burning down our whole city and state. And so by the time we got in American Falls, we were activated. We were motivated. We joined up with the Power County Republican Party, which was in tatters. I mean, there was two people out of the 11-seat committee, there were 2 members. And it took Misty and myself 2 years to build that central committee back up. So now we're fully staffed. All 11 seats are filled, and we're active in the community. Yes, sir. And it's from there that I started paying attention to our local representatives. Rick Cheatham in particular, my opponent, and then Dan Garner and Jim Guthrie. And I recognized their voting records from a million miles away as Democrat. These are Democrats, and so that's the last thing we need. As we watch the news, we look around at what time it is in America, what time it is in Idaho, what time it is in the world. There's these epic sort of ideological clashes happening, and this is the last thing we need. Are sort of the good old boy establishment, fake Republican class representing us.
When you talk to people in that district, are they surprised at your description of their voting record? What's the reaction been?
Yes. We have power in numbers. It's exactly what I suspected down here in this red state. We are a red state. And so most people do not pay attention, unfortunately, to local politics. They had no idea. By the hundreds, whether in Franklin County, Power County, Bannock County, the last 3 years that we've been on this, the great majority of people have absolutely no idea what their representatives have been doing on their behalf, supposedly, how they've been behaving in Boise, who controls them, obviously, and so they're appalled and they're shocked. And every once in a while you come across a member of the good old boy club that supports Cheatham and Garner and Guthrie. And make no mistake about it, Matt, they're not individuals. They run as a 3-way ticket constantly because of who they are and who represents them. They have to kind of run together. And so there's former county commissioners, there's former reps, there's sort of higher influenced folks in the community that grew up with these guys, that know these guys, that have done business with these guys, and you can spot them from a mile away too. You start telling them about Cheatham's voting record, and they know.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, James, I'm so glad we got a chance to chat on here and let the folks see you out there. Where can people learn more about your policy issues? Really dig deep into who you are. We've got your website up here, but where can people find that?
Thank you, Matt. It is landboardforidaho.com is where we have our whole platform laid out. We're on all 5 major social media platforms: Facebook, X, Substack, what have you, True Social, and Instagram at Lamborn for Idaho. And yeah, we need all the attention we can get. We need word of mouth support. We need awareness. Like I said, Matt, this is a small group of people who have run the show down here in East Idaho, Southeast Idaho, for a long time. I think they're white knuckling their power and their influence. They know they're losing it because, again, the America First MAGA Patriot crowd outnumbers these guys 10-1. It's my job to raise awareness and to get the energy up to get people to come out and vote on May 19th. And so you can follow us on Facebook. We update our campaign daily.
Fantastic. All right, guys, landboardforidaho, .com. Make sure you guys get over there. Thank you so much, James. Godspeed to you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right, take care. Woo, man. That's who you want, man. That's who you want in Boise. We need more beards like that. We need more stature like that, and that guy's got, if he wanted to go into radio too, I mean, whew, I love it. And he's a great guy. Like I said, met him a couple years ago, him and his wife, they're also viewers of the program too. So we appreciate that. Great to see him on there. So yeah, please do head over to his website and check him more out. Okay, folks, we've got a few minutes left in the show. I wanted to show one clip, guys. And it's the Alfieri presented a resolution today, and if we have that queued up, let's throw it to that real quick.
RS 33 068. I'm sure we're all aware of what happened last year and over the summer in Coeur d'Alene. The death of 2 firefighters who were ambushed and the critical injury of another one whose career has gone away as a result of that. And this resolution honors Battalion Chiefs Frank Harwood and John Morrison Jr. of Kootenai County Fire and the Coeur d'Alene Fire Department, as well as Dave Teasdale of the Coeur d'Alene Fire Department, who survived the attack. So I'm simply asking that the legislature honor the service of these men and actually all the Coeur d'Alene and Kootenai fire districts and the good work they do in this incredible, horrible tragedy that occurred last year. So I would ask for an introduction on this.
Thank you, Representative Alfieri. Just a question from the chair. Would you want to introduce this and have it come back for a full hearing, or would you like us to introduce it and send it up to the floor?
I would prefer to go right to the floor if we can do that.
Okay. Any other questions?
And I will mention that we do have some members of the local fire departments up here right now. So.
Yeah, very nice to see that. It was a horrible event that happened here over the summer, and it's great to see the legislature honor that, and of course, Joe Alfieri and his represented the area as well. So, all right, folks. Well, we've come to the end. We want to remind you to head over and go to idahosignal.live if you want to hear more about the what is it, the show that we broadcast live. That's where it's at. So. And the YouTube channel. Did we hit 4,000 yet? I'm not sure. We're close. We're close to hitting 4,000. Can you believe it? If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much for doing that. It is fantastic. Our sponsor is American Smoke Company. We call them a sponsor or a partner. I'm trying to get the it's brought to you by. This is we're being brought to us by American Smoke Company. These smoked salts from the Pacific Ocean, sea salt. Smoked with fantastic American wood. You can get a batch of your own at americansmokeco.com. And a reminder, leave us your message, 208-402-4915. We want to hear your thoughts on Estella. Old Estella, the activist Estella. She's going back to the Human Rights Commission. Should she? Should she go back there? Let the committee know. Call that number. 208-332-1326. They're going to be voting on the recommendation on Friday. So you've got a few days to do your own research on Estella and see if she needs to be there. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. All right, folks. We'll let it take it from here, and we will see you tomorrow.
American and Clark on the trail, raised out families with stories to tell. Generations working hard, hand in hand, building on our dreams, saying yes we can. So raise that flag, let freedom fly, echo liberty from plains to mountains high. America's heart beats red, white, and blue. 250 years of me and you, yeah, lift it up loud. Idaho pride. American truth.
This bill, I think, it puts a stake in the ground that says we have a sovereign right to protect what's ours.